All right, we are back to Joey Pigza Loses Control, Chapter 2. So remember in Chapter 1, Mom is driving to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to drop Joey off to meet his dad. He's going to stay there for 6 weeks for the summer. He's nervous, she's nervous. So let's see, what do you think dog-eared means? Hopefully not something to do with Pablo's ears. Bad things started not long after school had ended, and Mom was leaving me home alone all day because she had to work. She had given me a trumpet and the Herb Alpert tape and wanted me to learn all the songs. But it was too hard, so I only learned a few of the sounds. Mostly, Pablo and I hung out in our fenced-in little backyard, which was all dirt and rocks and dry islands of dead grass that looked like knotted-up troll hairs and were as hard to pull up as if I was pulling one of those wrinkly little people right out of the ground. Pablo and I were digging into the dirt with the splintered handle of a broken baseball bat and collecting good throwing rocks. When I got a pile of them, about 25 roundish ones, I started throwing them like some maniac. Pitching machine. Wham, wham, wham. One right after another at a target I had drawn on the wood fence, and their echo cracked through the neighborhood. I was so good, I almost got a bullseye every time. But then I got bored and I had to make it harder. So I bent over and side-armed one between my legs. It wasn't so good that way because the stone went flying over the fence, and then I heard something break. So I stopped and ran inside. A few minutes later, a man knocked on our door, but I was hiding behind the couch, and after he said some bad words, he finally went away. That's when I searched the house for new things to do and find the dart set in the attic. There was a lot of game stuff up there that must have belonged to my dad, and since he wasn't in the picture anymore, I took it for mine. I went down to the living room and drew a bunch of animals with bull's eyes on pieces of paper pieces of paper which I taped on couch pillows. I scattered them around the room, then started to practice. I'd spin around a few times, then screech to a sudden stop and wing a dart at the closest bullseye. I was pretty good and really liked having to throw the darts when I was dizzy. Even as the room was spinning like a wobbly carousel, I was pretty good. I hit all my targets somewhere. And one time I kept spinning until everything was blurry, like when you tape a bottle bottoms on your eyes. And when I stopped, I threw a dart at the first animal I saw and heard Pablo yelp. And when I could get my balance back and focus my eyes, I found him quivering in a corner of the couch with a dart through his ear. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. He should not have this dog. I called to him, but he didn't say a word. At first, he just sat there stunned and stared with his shiny bug eyes at me, like he couldn't believe I had hurt him. And then he went nuts and was running around the room, yapping and hopping and dragging that dart around. When I finally cornered him, I told him he was going to be okay. And he was okay, because the dart had just gone through the skin and made a clean hole. It was like I had poked it through a soft piece of suede. There was only about a drop of blood spilled, but the sight of blood really makes him hysterical. So I held him down and tried to cover his eyes as I pulled the dart out. He went berserk, and I got worried the hole might get infected and he would have to have his ear amputated and go to his own doggy special ed for disabled dogs. So I wrapped him up and carried him down to the hair salon to get Mom's opinion on if we should take Pablo to the vet or just put one of my old patches on him. No. She was in the middle of teasing out a woman's hair when I brought Pablo in, wrapped in a bath towel, and she gave me a pretty stressed out look. It was an accident that the dart went through his ear, I explained. I was aiming at a moose. "Aw, sugar," she said. "Sugar, sugar. Now let me see what you've done to poor Pablo." I told her we were only playing nice, and she said to the lady that she'd be back in a minute and grabbed me by the arm, and we dashed into the back room full of shampoo smells. She opened a first aid kit and put iodine on Pablo's ear and then a Band-Aid on either side of the hole. He was fixed, but Mom and me were not because she was steaming mad. I can't do my work if I have to worry about what trouble you're cooking up all day long, she said. No more trouble, I said. I'll just sit and play my trumpet, but I've been thinking, can I have one of our hoop earrings for Pablo? You won't let me pierce my ear, but since he has a hole. I've had it, Mom said. I've had it up to here. And she held her hand to her forehead, but there was still an inch to go at the top of her head, so she hadn't had it with me completely. It was my fault, I said quietly. I think my patch wore down. The only thing worn down is that excuse, she said right back. I could plaster you in patches and you would still do the same nutty stuff. Don't raise your voice, I said. You know what upsets Pablo. I thought she was going to burst into flames. She was so mad. Okay, she said to herself and shoved her hands into her pockets like she was digging for change. Take a deep breath. Count to 10. Maybe daycare is the answer. Maybe I can get a job here with you, I suggested. I could wash hair. You'd put us out of business in a week, she said, starting to come around. You'd scrub those old ladies' heads down to a nub. They'd look like the little bald spot you wore down on your own crown, picking and scratching. I touched my head and gave a hurt face because my bald spot was a sensitive subject. I'm sorry, she purred, then grabbed me and gave me a hug and said we'd figure something out. After she went back to work, Pablo and I marched home. Pablo was fine, and as soon as I unlocked the front door, we ran to Mom's jewelry box and got a big hoop earring because she hadn't said no exactly. I put it through Pablo's hole and called him Pirate Matey Pablo. Then we turned the couch into a pirate ship. I got a sheet and hoisted it up the floor lamp and clamped a steak knife between my teeth, and we got busy attacking other ships. When Mom came home, she caught me sword fighting with my patch over one eye and lipstick blood on my shirt and arms. She sent me to my room to chill out while she mixed a drink. Do you feel like your meds really are wearing off? She asked when she came to check on me and found me walking on my hands. Wow. Can I get back to you on that? I shouted and fell over. Don't play with me that way, she replied, and dropped to her knees and fell under my shirt for the patch, then tickled my belly. I love you too much to get jerked around by you. The next day, the letter came from Dad's lawyer, and that's the last time until the car ride I heard Mom hissing, oh, sugar, sugar, sugar. I must have fallen asleep in the car because I woke up when it stopped, and Mom was tugging on the speaker wire from my tape player like I was a fish she was reeling in. Are we there yet? I asked and rubbed my ears. Almost, she said. Your dad's place is up the street. I wanted to stop and talk over a few things before we arrive. Most of all, I want to say my real goodbye to you now, because when I see your dad and Grandma, everything is going to be weird, and I might be weird too, and I don't want you thinking I'm bailing out on you or something. She held me by the cheeks and kissed me like you would picture in a frame. Listen to your dad, she said. He's your dad, but if anything seems out of whack, you call me right away, and I'll come get you, okay? She held my chin in her hands and stared real hard into my eyes before looking toward her purse. This is for you, she said, and handed me an envelope, folded in half. There is money in it, not play money, but emergency money. I opened the envelope. There was a $20 bill and a page of limed paper with a roll of quarters taped to it. She read the puzzled look on my face. The quarters are for a payphone, she explained. Can I call you now? I said, because I already think this whole thing is out of whack. This is not out of whack, she stressed. You are starting from scratch with your dad, so everything feels strange. Then she put the car in gear, and I knew she was being brave, so I didn't say another word. We slowly rolled forward, and just up the street, Grandma was sitting on a porch, smoking. And next to her was a thin man, dressed in neatly pressed clothes. He was sweeping the porch, but leaned the broom handle against the wall when he saw us. Mom stopped and waved, then opened her door. I got out as Grandma and Dad scrambled down the steps. Before he said anything to me, he tried to kiss Mom, but she yanked her head back as if Dad's lips were electrified. Then she gave him a frozen look and said to me, "Joey, go get the luggage out of the trunk." Wow, that dad is not playing around, is he? I got the keys out of the ignition and went around to the back of the car with my head spinning so fast I couldn't pluck one thought out of the blur of them. The two of them being weird together was making me think if I locked myself in the trunk, they might forget about being mad at each other and focus on me. But I canceled that thought, and by the time I came back dragging my armed duffel bag, no one was talking, but they were staring so hard at each other with their mouths slowly opening and closing like big goldfish. I figured I had gone deaf from bad nerves and started twisting my fingers into my ears like when they needed cleaning. "Don't worry," Dad finally said. "I'll take good care of him." I heard that loud and clear, and by then he was holding the box of patches. "I'll change it every day like I do with my nicotine patch, and every other day, depending." Mom cut him off. "Just follow the prescription," she said sharply. "Joey will tell you." "Don't worry," he said. "But I do," Mom replied. "You might mess with my head, but if you mess with this kid," she didn't finish her thought out loud because she had finished it in her mind so many times, and it was making her so huffy she was about to lose it. So it was my turn again to help her out. I reached for her hand, and when she glanced over at me, I winked our giant eye-squishing secret wink, which was a reminder to chill out. She smiled, and instead of going off the deep end, she stooped down by my side, fixed the hair back over my getting better bald spot, then gave me a hug. "Call me," she whispered in my ear. "Call often so I can say I love you." Then she turned, stiffly marched like a wind-up toy soldier toward the car, got in, and drove off.